So we have Columbia County and Anniston City Schools. Where's Anniston? Oh, it's in Alabama. That's so awesome. Thank you, Tammy, for joining us from Alabama.
You might win the prize for farthest away. We'll have to see.
I know, right? That's so
The prize is a snack, which I didn't bring.
Well, welcome everyone for coming. We'll go ahead and get started. So this tonight is a part of our Georgia TESOL professional learning series. Typically what happens during our series, we have talks mostly twice a month. We're going to take a break in July. These series are open for all Georgia TESOL members, unless it's labeled as public, and like tonight, and if it's labeled as public, it's open to everyone. And so we try to offer free professional learning to our members and for all areas of TESOL. And now you can receive a certificate of participation. You'll get an email with a link to a Google form where you can give us some feedback, and upon completing that, you will receive a certificate of participation, which can help towards your requirements for re-upping your certification, the Georgia certification. So we do that. We had an end of year school year social back in May, and so we try to keep things moving and keep things interesting with the professional learning series. One of the things with the feedback, we also asked about other things you would like us to consider providing going forward. This year is kind of planned out, but we're going to go ahead and start working on next year towards the end of the summer. So we're open to all of your ideas. Feel free to let us know what you're interested in learning about. So for the open sessions that are related to or that are public, I'm sorry, we've been doing two sort of sub-series, one on student, parent, and community empowerment. For that one, we've had 3 of those so far. We're going to have another one in August and another one in September. And then tonight, in the month of June, we're focusing on content and language integration, stemming from the WIDA standard. So we had one on shifting the instructional paradigm for WIDA 2020, which Dr. Elizabeth Webb, our president, led. And then last week we had a representative, Asha Jasani from the Department of Education, who did a wonderful presentation about ELA. And so tonight we're going to concentrate on social studies, and I'll introduce our speaker in a second. And then next week, we're going to focus on science, and the last week we will focus on math. So again, next session is on science with another one of our DOE partners. Feel free to sign up tonight, sign up soon, because that will be next week, this same bat channel, same bat station, bat time. So tonight we are focusing on social studies, and we are being joined by our friend from the Department of Education, Nancy. Nancy, I just lost your name. Hold on.
Balaun.
Balaun, thank you. Switch screens. But Nancy joins us from the Department of Education. She joined, she actually switched into teaching. She was in business for 20 years, right, Nancy? And then switched over to, she left IBM 20 years ago for the classroom and has not looked back. She's been a teacher and a STEM lead, and also loves technology. And this is the kind of work she brings to the Department of Education and therefore to us. And so her passion is helping teachers make social study engaging and accessible for all learners. And with that, I'm going to hush, and I'm going to let Nancy take it from here.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to see folks from all over the place. And I hope you'll at least get one little gem out of this that you can take with you back into your classroom. As mentioned, I was a teacher for 20 years at a DeKalb County school here in Atlanta, Georgia. My school was a very, very broad mix of ELs. So I kind of get a kick out of people who say, well, you know, you have English learners, just translate everything into Spanish. I was like, I don't think you understand. There is no majority language at my school. I literally had 9 different languages per class that was my smallest number, was 9 different languages. You know, I'm sorry, I don't speak Amharic, I don't speak Vietnamese, Korean, Chinese, Japanese, you name it. I do have a little bit of Spanish, which my kids usually find very amusing when I try to speak it. So anyway, I think that I come from the heart of having a classroom full of ELs that wanted to learn so badly. And for me, the goal was to make it comprehensible for them to be able to begin participating, and then just as the year goes on, grow their ability to participate. So a lot of my strategies are indeed designed for that. So let's go ahead and get started. I am Nancy Balaun. Oops, there we go. I am Nancy Balaun. I am the Georgia Department of Education Program Specialist for Social Studies and ESOL. We've got Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. We used to have tiny videos on that platform that allowed you to have short little videos, but we don't use that anymore. So all of our little tiny videos are on YouTube. They're 3-minute videos. A lot of them are formatted for your phone. So hopefully I'll get a chance to show you some of those resources. If I'm looking up, forgive me, I've got, like, you guys are down here on the screen so that I kind of look at the camera, and then my presentation is up high. So when I'm changing screens, I have to look up. All right, for a little icebreaker, I want you to use the chat. And every strategy that I use with you all is a strategy that I hope you could find a way to adapt for your classroom. In fact, we're going to talk about that with this one. And I want you to pay attention to kind of how I go about doing this. Step 1, choose an image. Step 2, think of a hashtag or a headline or a caption. Step 3, type it in chat, but don't include the picture number because we're going to try to guess what picture. You didn't know you were going to have to participate, huh? What in the world? Oh, I know which one that is. I'm guessing what in the world is picture number 3. He really does have that look. Ooh, I gotta make this a little bigger. It's pick me. That's probably the middle one. Although I don't know, it could be the 3rd one. I'm okay. I'm tapping out. Nope, done. This wasn't included in the job description. Oh, that had to be 3. I'm guessing that's 3. Want some? Got to be 2, I'm guessing. All right, well, if y'all want to keep on going with that, we're going to go ahead and move along. But this is really fun. And whenever we introduce a concept to our kiddos, not to you all, can't get me. Whenever we introduce a concept or a strategy with our kiddos, it can be really fun to do it with non-content related subject matter. That really helps get the kids engaged, especially if you choose images that they can really relate to or they find fun. Now, in my presentations, I pick images that I hope adults will relate to and have fun with. For kids, I usually try to find things where kids are the subject, you know, electronic games, or I don't know, there's so many things that you can get them fired up about. For elementary school, our elementary school did not have lockers, but in middle school they did. So lockers were a hot topic for them. So finding, you know, a kid doing something with a locker was always a good one. Okay, so now here's the same activity. We're going to do it. Actually, for sake of time, I don't think we'll actually do this one with historical context. But you get the idea. So this one has actual historical. Now let's go ahead and do it real quick. Choose an image, think of a hashtag, and type it in the chat. And you do not have to know, that's the beauty of this activity. You don't need to know the historical context. You don't have to have any idea what's going on. Be kind. Oh, that could be either 1 or 2, right? If you kind of know what's going on into, you would definitely see that one as be kind as well. Oh, I made my chat window small again. Lending a helping hand. That also could be, really in a way, that could be any of the 3 of them. Build together. Yeah, these are some fun images. And I'll go ahead and just go to the next screen. It'll give you the standards that the idea was for each of these photos was. Oh, I'm sorry. No, we're gonna talk about what do you notice about the directions first. So what do you notice about the directions? And I want you to do this from a multilingual learner point of view. You know, coming into a classroom and having access to the content, having access to what everybody else in the room is doing, especially with a little kind of looking around. Now, I don't promise this gives full access. You know, if you have a child that's just brand new to English, but it gets them started. So what do you notice about these directions? Blue words, pictures. I'm not sure what SREPs is. The keywords are bold and there's pictures to help them. Steps. Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, so numbering the steps. And then the verb, the action word, the thing that I want them to do is in bold, so that that's kind of the keyword that they focus on. And the thing about using these, I call these visually accessible directions. The thing about using these is if you try to use them, the same picture, the same icon, and there's a whole bunch of black and white icons that you can get, because I know a lot of y'all don't have color printers, right? But displaying on a board, you can use color. If you use it, like if I'm going to do think, I'm going to show this little guy every single time, so that very quickly my new to English students will begin to associate this blue word think with this, especially if we're saying it out loud and we see people doing it. Then very quickly they get not only the auditory think, the auditory vocabulary, but they get the written vocabulary, and they have a visual image to help them make that connection. Type, you know, this one's kind of universal, so they may get that one like almost right away. And this one, you can see they're trying to choose a direction. So I use these with my English learners. I love to tell the story of my first year teaching, coming out of IBM, and I stood at the front of the room and I gave them the directions. Read chapter 1 in your social studies book, and I want you to write down the definitions for all of the bold vocabulary words. That's how exciting my lessons were back then. And I turned around to the board, and then I turned back around. Nobody was doing anything. So I said, why aren't y'all doing anything? What are we supposed to do? Well, read the chapter and write down the vocabulary words and write the definitions. I thought those were simple directions, right? Turn around. Nobody's doing anything. Okay. Then I started having them do like a pair share when I gave directions. Well, first I decided, okay, you got to write them and put them on the board, first of all. Then you got to let them discuss it. And that still wasn't enough. I literally had to go table by table and say, baby, what are the directions? Okay, what are the directions? No, you have to write it down. Okay, what are the directions? And then they would get it. So this isn't even really an EL strategy. This is an all student strategy. All right, so how could you use this activity? So this one, if we look at the kindergarten standards, for civics and government, demonstrate an understanding of good citizenship. So if you were introducing that standard in kindergarten, this would be a great image to use. This one is a second grade history standard. Describe the lives and contributions of historical figures in Georgia history. This one, of course, is Jimmy and Rosalind, because as you know, they did a lot of work with Habitat for Humanity. That's why I said the be kind and all of that really fits this one too. And then this is a fifth grade standard. I'm sorry for you guys that are not in Georgia. It is Georgia standard focus because I am the Georgia Department of Education. But I'm sure you have similar standards. This one is fifth grade standard. Describe how basically the cattle trails. So the really fun thing about this is you can use this as a formative assessment to see where they are. If you put up a picture of, you know, Jimmy and Rosalind, and your kids are like, that's Jimmy Carter and he did Habitat for Humanity. You're like, okay, well, we're going to move through this unit quickly because they already know this. But you know, if they're like, is that a cow or is that a dog? It's like, you know, we're going to spend a little more time here. It also helps. One of the things that I do a session on is it's not background knowledge gaps. We call it background knowledge gaps, but it's really that they have alternate experiences. So I do a thing called build a duck, and everybody builds their ducks. Some of them are flying, some of them are in the water. They have the same 6 Lego pieces, and yet the ducks come out completely different, and it's our frame of reference. Some of us have been exposed to ducks in the wild. Some of us have only ever seen them in videos. Maybe some of us have only seen little ducklings as pictures. Maybe some of us have only seen them as cartoons. So some of our kids may be familiar with cows and cattle. cattle. But some of our kids may not have any idea what that small thing is that they're chasing, especially if they're younger. So it's really respecting kids' alternate experiences and understanding that we all come from different places and different experiences. And this is a great way to kind of find out, where are your kids on this? How familiar are they with cows and cattle and the open range and horses and that kind of thing? Or with, you know, housing construction or any of that. So we're going to take a minute. I was talking about comprehensible input and students, and how students can understand what they're getting, basically. And the input is the interpretive side of this graphic. That's information that's coming in. Are we giving that to them in a way that's comprehensible to every kid in your classroom, regardless of their background, regardless of their language skills with English at this time? Are you giving them something that they can relate to, not even relate to, but something that they have access to? You know, if everything is, like my first day of teaching, read the text. I thought, okay, they're fourth grade. It's a fourth grade text. They can read it. No. And I was really surprised to discover that the very textbook that I used in my classroom, most of my kids, that was not accessible for. So when you're taking when you're asking them to take information in, how are you presenting it? So we talk a lot about SQUIRREL, the speaking, writing, illustrating, reading, and listening. Now I like to be both illustrating and interacting. The beauty of interacting is they both speak and they listen. And sometimes they're writing and drawing to get their ideas across. So that one sits in the middle here, both the illustrating and the interacting, and then reading and listening. So if you give them a passage to read, are you giving them something visual with it? Are you giving them something auditory with it? You know, a lot of the great speeches, like I Have a Dream and stuff like that, those are auditory files. So they can get it both auditorily, I think that's a word, and in written form. And there's video. So there's so many ways you can present it. And we all know that repetition also builds fluency. So if we give it to them in 3 different ways, we're not only giving them accessibility for the content, but we're giving them multiple exposures to it to help develop fluency. And then of course, expressive is how do they let you know what they understood from what they took in. And so that would be the writing and speaking. And again, illustrating and interacting, because while I can look at an illustration, I can also create one. And I'm going to share a bunch of resources with you at the end where all of my concept maps have a block for illustrating as well as writing. So I'm going to share with you where you can get those. I used to have to, they're going to be in the folder at the end. I used to have to actually give them to you, but now we have a place where you can go and get them yourself. So I absolutely cannot run out of time before I do that. So the social studies classroom, I had a kid one time, I was trying to build rapport and I said, so what's your favorite subject? And they all liked one of the 3, but the one that nobody liked, literally nobody liked, was social studies. And I said, why? And this kid looks at me and he goes, Miss Balaun, social studies is about what a bunch of old dead guys did a long time ago that nobody cares about anyway. And all the other kids were like, oh my gosh, she's going to kill him. I was like, baby, you are right. But that's not how we're going to do social studies. So like memorizing the capitals and stuff like that. What's the point? That's not useful knowledge. We want to engage our kids in using social studies. That same kid got in trouble at the end of the year for going down to the cafeteria because, you know, of course, social studies is the one that gets split by lunch, right? So 15 minutes, then we went down to lunch, then we came back 15 minutes. And they were like, Miss Balaun, your kids are always still debating at the table. Can you please, they're supposed to stop and eat. I was like, okay, sorry. I was like, you guys, why don't you want? They were like, we got to go down to lunch. We don't want to go. I was like, why not? We love social studies. And I said, I thought you hated it. And they said, no, because what we think and feel matters. How do you get them to where what they think and feel about stuff matters? Well, first of all, asking compelling questions. So, you know, the Sons of Liberty is what they were doing. Was that right? Were they criminals or were they patriots? And that's a question. And again, there's no right answer and there shouldn't be a right answer. And you got to be willing to hear views that you may or may not agree with, but asking these compelling questions. Now, I'm not telling you to ask that question. You check with your district whether that's an okay question to ask. But there's so many questions you can ask that aren't even necessarily inflammatory that kids will have different ideas about. My favorite one is I come into them on I say it's December 6th, 1941, which is the day before Pearl Harbor for the 5th graders. And I say, I'm the president, you know, Congressman Luis, Senator Susie, welcome. As you know, you all have to declare war. I can't as the president, so I'm here today to talk to you. Are we going to declare war? And the CIA has prepared an intelligence packet for us, and that's all of the maps and the firsthand and the accounts and the speeches and the political cartoons. And by the end of 2 weeks, they go through that and they have to answer before Pearl Harbor, would have gone to war. And that's not controversial. That's a question, though, that there's lots of evidence and they can believe whichever side they want. Really rich discussions, and they will get very hot about something that happened in 1941. So asking good questions, source analysis, bringing the stuff into the classroom. And I've got some digital resources that I can share with you. Articles, diaries, letters, legal documents, journal entries, objects. And like Anne Frank, one of the pictures of the book, she's wearing a scarf. You don't have to actually have Anne Frank's scarf. I'm sure that costs a whole lot of money in a museum somewhere, but you can bring in a scarf. Right? You can bring in an old, I don't know, an old Coke bottle or something. If like maybe there's some ad that's got the old, green Coke bottle glass. Those might be pretty expensive too. I shouldn't assume. Maps, globes, audio files, video files. There's a bunch of virtual field trips and stuff now. So civil and civic discourse. That's what I'm talking about. If you have good questions that there's no right answer to, then the kids are going to have to talk about it. They're going to have to share their ideas. And that really gets you into the whole swirl thing. Yeah, the folder will be available. Actually, I'm going to show you how to get to everything through Georgia Inspires, which you don't have to have an account for to get to. So yeah, if you're out of state, you can get to all our stuff. It's all out there. We put it all out there. So, but the hard part about civil and civic discourse is you got to make sure you give them balanced evidence. The first time, like a lot of times, history has preserved a lot of documents for one side, but not the other. And so you really have to dig, because you're not going to have a debate if all of the evidence is clearly weighted towards one side. There's nothing to debate. So that's an important part of it. And I'm going to share this document with you too. And then disciplinary thinking, that's putting on the different hats of social studies. If you looked at and forgive me, a lot of my standards do come from 4th and 5th grade, because that's mostly what I taught, but you can take like, I think it's 1st grade is the holidays, If we looked at the Thanksgiving holiday through the lens of a historian, what does that look like? If we look at the Thanksgiving holiday through the lens of an economist, what does that look like? In fact, I came across a great rationing document. I was doing an exercise to put out there on rationing, and it was about sharing the meat for Thanksgiving. And they said, and we know some of you can't afford to put a turkey on the table. So that whole, what does a Thanksgiving feast look like to an economist? Historian, economist, geographer. What does Thanksgiving look like for a geographer, and so on and so forth. So the different lenses that we look at, we call them hats for kids, but for adults, the different lenses that we look at historical events through can be really fun to examine for the kids. And you'll notice all of these include the speaking, writing, illustrating, reading, and listening. All right. What do oops, that was supposed to be covered. Those were supposed to not be there for you to see. I just gave away all the answers. Whoops. All right, well, we'll move along so we can get to the fun stuff anyway. So what do multilingual students need the most? And if you don't see it on here, put it in chat for me. And when I say fit into schema, that comes from that whole idea that everybody has background knowledge. It's not gaps, it's alternate life experiences. And we have a tendency, one of the studies has shown that part of why the gap between ELs and non-ELs doesn't really close as they spend more time in school, like they go up, but they go up like proportionally, is because we often teach them as if all of the English part is blank slate that needs to be filled in, and it's not. Whenever like I tell the story of a kid that's driving through the country for the first time with their parents, and they see cows and they say, "Mommy, look at the doggy." And Mommy's like, "That's not a doggy, baby, that's a cow." That child knew it wasn't a dog. They looked at that thing and said, "No, that's not a dog." But their schema says, okay, it's four-legged, it's furry. It kind of looks like a dog, even though it's not. That's the only word I have for it because I don't have the word cow. So our kids that come from other cultures have experiences. And the way they learn is by saying, Mom says, "No, that's not a doggy, that's a cow." And now they say, okay, dog, cow, here's the differences. Now I know. they have to put it into a schema, and we kind of don't maybe take as much care in understanding what their schema is and how to put this new knowledge into it. So that's what I mean by fit to a schema. Swirl we talked about, and comprehensible input we talked about. So what are the WIDA language standards? I'm going to, that's a whole nother session. Here is the link to your free copy of the WIDA language standards. And there's a lot of really great stuff in the beginning before they actually get to the WIDA language standards that talks about a lot of how they came up with these, you know, all of the thought that went behind it. Here's the link. If you just search on WIDA language framework, you'll very quickly get the link to it, and you can download it, or you can just view it online. For social studies purposes, there's 4 key language uses that we pretty much look at. And really for social studies, only 2 of them get used a lot. There's narrate, which is storytelling. There's informing, which is like, you know, the informational writing, the expository writing. And then there's arguing and explaining. And most of social studies falls into, we have almost no narrate, which is kind of odd because there's a lot of great narratives out there. There's a lot of narrative fiction out there that's historical fiction that's great. But from WIDA's perspective, not as much of the narrative. There's a little bit of inform, which is where I know something, I don't have to really explain it to you how it is. I know, like, here's the Erie Canal or whatever, or north, south, east, west. Explain is where they have to tell you how things work. And a lot of our social studies standards do ask that you explain how something works. How do the 3 branches of the government work, right? And then a lot of it is argue, you know, was that a good decision? Why did that happen? Basically, anytime you have to justify a point of view or even just back a statement up with evidence. So we're going to look at it from that lens. I think we're going to scoot by this one. This is really just some data that shows in days where social studies is marginalized, because we've got to teach ELA and math, because, you know, those, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's the tested subjects. These statistics show you that teaching social studies content through an ELA lens actually is more beneficial if you have extra time than teaching ELA. So just to really quickly look at this one, students were given 30 extra minutes in a subject area. So they did get ELA instruction during the day. They got 30 extra minutes. Now, how did their reading scores improve? Their scores on a reading test. If they got 30 extra minutes of ELA, 3%. Math, 6%, non-core, 3%, -1 for science, 15% for social studies. So teaching social studies during your ELA block, or at least getting social studies content in, will actually improve your students' reading scores. I thought that was powerful. So as I go through this, I want you to look at this through an ELA lens as well as a social studies lens, because if you're elementary, most of you are probably teaching both. Maybe not, but, and even if you're not, one of the high yield strategies for our multilingual learners is having them deal with reading and writing activities every single day. So even if you're just teaching social studies, for your ELs, reading and writing is the way to really help them close that gap faster, get the language skills and everything that they need to be successful in school. So, excuse me, let's take a look at using primary sources in the classroom. Oh no. I knew that might happen, so I kept a water cup nearby. Using primary sources in the classroom is a great way to bring in reading and writing. The thing is, and again, this applies to all students, not just ELs, most of our primary sources are not going to be accessible for your average school-age child. They're just not. So the things that I'm doing, you're going to do for all kids. It's just a question of to what degree. So this is a little journal entry or diary entry. This is the Cattle Trails fourth grade standards, westward expansion. Yeah, that's 4th grade still. No, that's 5th grade. Yeah, because that's after the Civil War, it's 5th grade. So anyway, it's a journal entry. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, when we say chunking the text, that doesn't mean just give them a tiny little chunk and expect them to go run with that. You got to look at that text and see, okay, what are they going to struggle with? Is there in isolation, the kids understand, but as a whole concept, it doesn't make sense. So I'm not going to read this out loud. What I did was essentially, I looked at through my kids' lens, wherever they are, your kids are going to be different. And I knew thicket was So maybe now, am I just going to tell them what thicket is? Depends on time. Honestly, I'll be honest with you. If we got to book through this, then I might just give them the definition for thicket. But I will probably have ready images of thickets, definitions of thickets, people talking about thickets, auditory files about thickets, maybe a video showing somebody getting stuck in a thicket or something. That is going to make it a lot more meaningful if you just give them a definition of thicket. No alternative. And again, that one, I don't know how much you can give visuals for, but you can have the kids discuss it. And I don't know why I highlighted thicket twice. That doesn't make any sense. And then, so this is about a stampede. And I know my kids don't really know what a stampede is, or maybe they haven't, they've seen the cartoon version of it. They've never thought about real human beings and real animals having to go through a stampede and like the terror of it and all that and the excitement of it. So I include an image, one that you got to filter these because some of them are not, you don't want to send your kids home terrified. So yeah, I just pick an image that I think will give them the idea without going too overboard. And we would have rich discussions about stampedes. I might even have them, draw their concept of a stampede. I might have them talk about their feeling, how the cowboys might have been feeling during the stampede, maybe how the cows are feeling, how are the horses feeling. So we might do a whole, what's everybody feeling? We might even do an image analysis and look at the expressions. The kids may not know anything about horses. So I love to point out, they say, oh, the horse looks scared. And I say, well, if you know about horses, you'll know that the horse actually probably isn't scared because look at which way his ears are pointing. And I learned a long time ago in horseback riding school, you can tell where a horse's attention is by where its ears are pointing. So it's listening to its cowboy and it's trusting its cowboy. All right, so this one is the Jimmy Carter standard, first grade. So when we do image analysis, it's easy to get caught up in the idea it has to be either a photograph or like a picture, a painting or a picture. I love bringing in sculpture. And yes, I can't physically bring sculpture, although with VR, you might be able to soon. I love to bring in sculpture too. So this one, we've got a sculpture. We've got a quote, to be true to ourselves, we must be true to others. And the measure of a society is found in how they treat their weakest and most helpless citizens. Now, I wouldn't just give this to kids, but I'll start with a what do you see, what do you think, what do you wonder? Because this is they don't have any skin in the game and there's no consequences and there's no wrong answers. So long as you can back it up with evidence, if you say, I think that it's winter. All right, baby, why do you think it's winter? And they give you some evidence that tells them that it's winter. I mean, that's obviously something they'd be hard pressed to prove, and you got to be careful. Don't ever say, baby, prove it to me, to the kids that always come up with kind of the weird stuff. But you do want to do it with them because, and don't do it with all right, why do you say that? Because then they'll get afraid to answer. If you say, okay, sweetie, prove it. What do you see? Sometimes they will blow you away. You'll be like, oh my gosh, I never even saw that. Or I never thought of it that way. And that also teaches the culture of giving grace to people when they say something that sounds kind of out of left field. They may have a really good reason for it, but I have them prove it. And like one kid might say, his sleeves are rolled up. Okay, or I think he's getting ready to work. Well, prove it to me, baby, because his sleeves are rolled up or whatever. And I do it with the text too. What do you see? What do you think? What do you wonder about the text? And when you first introduce this, it's going to be like pulling teeth. So you have to say, well, what do you think? How's he dressed? What position is he in? Is he doing anything with his hands? Sometimes you kind of have to ask leading questions to pull it out of them. But if you do these pretty regularly, they will jump on it. As soon as they see this, what do you see? What do you think? What do you wonder? They'll be like, oh, call on me, call on. It's also great to have them, especially if you've got, English learners, to have them do a see, think, wonder as a small group and everybody puts it maybe on a chart paper or something. And then they present a bunch of ideas at once. That can be a safer place than raising the hand and saying it out loud. So there's lots of ways you can do a see, think, wonder that are safer than just like you. Here's a different kind of image analysis, a people, objects, setting, actions, relationship summary. So, and you don't make the kids do, well, you can make them do all of them, especially if they're working in groups. You can say, okay, you're going to have a half hour with this. I want you to come up with something for all of that. But you can just say, pick one. What do you think? Setting, objects, what objects do you see? What people do you see? What actions do you see? You can use these for summative assessments as well. So at the end of a unit, when they do have knowledge of what's going on, then you can do this to see where their knowledge is. How far have they come? You know, what do they understand about what's going on in this image based on the journal entries that they've read and the accounts of stampedes and river crossings and the dangers that are on the cattle trails. And then here's one that's maybe even a little bit more higher level in thought. Who's in the picture? What's happening? When was it? Where is it? And the last one, why is this important? Why do we care? History is about a bunch of old dead guys that did stuff a long time ago that nobody cares about anyway. But we need to care. Why? And I asked them, baby, why do we need to care about this? They'll blow you away sometimes, especially if they've had a good in-depth unit, they'll blow you away with their answers. Here's another one. Oh boy, I got to get moving along. This one is kind of the stampede was more the scary side of cattle trails, because for this one, I usually ask them, would you go on a cattle trail? In fact, I think I have one coming up, wish you were here. Would you go? If you lived back then, would you go on a cattle drive? And most of them say no, but quite a few of them say yes. But this is one where you got to be really careful to give them resources that support a yes argument. The beauty, the grandeur, the open spaces, the freedom. For many of the Black Cowboys of Texas, their alternative was sharecropping, right? So for them, this was actually pretty good pay. And you know, there was still obviously discrimination, but considering it was a lot more respect overall, after months on the cattle trail, it often got to where people respected you for what you did, and you know how brave you were and all that. Oh, here's the wish you were here. This is a great one. I love to do this again. Formative assessment, summative assessment as an activity in and of itself. Wish you were here. We talk about the old postcards. Talk to a neighbor. Would you like to be here? Why or why not? Now, you guys don't get to talk to a neighbor, but you can, and you don't need to write for a minute. Please don't write for a minute. But you can put in here, wish you were here, yes or no, prove it. So if you say, no, I don't wish you were here, I don't want to be here, here's why. Or, yeah, I would love for you to be here with me. I'm having a great time, here's why. Based on the image. Now, here's where you got to remind your kids, based on the image. So if you're going to prove it, you got to prove it with something you see in that image, or you can reasonably conclude from that image. So real quick, just pop a few wish you were here's in here. Yes or no? Yes. Can you tell us why? No, it's dry based on the scrub grass, and I really don't like horseback riding. No, it looks hot and dry. Yes, I need to earn money doing this work. Yeah. Although I think they made $10 a day. No, maybe they made, I don't remember how much they made. I've got that figure somewhere in a table because I did give them that, how much they made. I wish I were there because the landscape looks expansive and lovely. Yes, the cattle don't hold their end of the conversation. No, life looked hard. Not sure. Can't tell if a cowboy is at peace or lonely. Yeah, or, you know, maybe he's waiting for the cows to do something crazy. So this can be really fun, and the kids will come up with some really wild fun stuff. Every time I do this as a PL, I get some really different answers. It's just amazing how many different groups of people you show this to and just how very different their answers can be. And it really shows the difference in their experiences. I got a lot more yeses this time. Usually I get a lot more no's. And I couple this with a table. Did you know that cowboys made the same salary as teachers back then? That's one of the comparisons on the table is, you know, the pay for a cowboy, the pay for a teacher. But did you know that their hats cost $10, which was, I think, a month's pay, as I recall. Okay, here's again, this one I would not start with the historical content. For younger kids, I love to do like this or that, dogs or cats. Although with that one, again, you got to be careful and know your kids. If you have a kid, and you also have to teach others to be kind to a kid that, you know, what do you mean you don't know dogs or cats? Well, maybe they weren't ever allowed to have a pet. Maybe they're super allergic or something. So if I know that's a possibility, I might include, even if I did dogs and cats, I might include images of dogs and cats, videos of dogs and cats, both of them being, you know, sweet, kind, loving critters, and as they say, being jerks, right? There's many videos out there, cats being jerks and dogs being jerks. But, you know, if people having to walk the dog in the rain, people, you know, going for a lovely jog with the dog, you know, people having to clean out the litter pan, people snuggling their cat, I would give them that kind of stuff. So we're going to do a quick this or that with Ruby Bridges and Rosa Parks. Now, there's lots of pictures, portraits of Ruby Bridges and Rosa Parks. If I were doing this as a summative assessment, I could use those. If I'm doing this either as a formative assessment or as a learning activity in and of itself, I tried to pick pictures that kind of show them in the moment that we're kind of talking about historically. So I mean, the two pictures are really powerful. I very deliberately chose one where there's a lot of interaction kind of on the faces of the people and stuff like that. So this or that, Ruby Bridges or Rosa Parks. This, I believe, is a second grade standard, no, first grade standard character traits, bravery. Who is more brave, Ruby Bridges or Rosa Parks? And again, no answer is wrong. Back it up with your evidence. So if you're going to say Ruby Bridges was more brave, this works a lot better in person where you can kind of really elaborate on your thoughts, but try to give us just a quick snapshot of why one is more brave than the other. And for kindergartners, like you can do that with the holidays, you know, which is the better holiday, 4th of July or Labor Day? Well, I don't know. 4th of July would probably win too much on that one. 4th of July or Thanksgiving? Rosa Parks, she was aware of the consequences. Oh, I got to expand it. I'm missing some. They scroll by too fast. Rosa Parks, because she wouldn't give up her seat on the bus. She was aware of the consequences. She knew what would happen when she resisted segregation. Ruby Bridges' parents were the ones in control since she was a young child. And then just because the Rosa Parks seems to be heavily weighted, but the fact that Ruby Bridges was a young child and she didn't get to make that choice and she had to go through this, and she did go through this. I don't know, that one, I just look at these three big men surrounding her with these just angry expressions. That one just breaks, this photo just breaks my heart every time. Ruby, she had to hear a lot of ugly words said to her. An image I often use for this one is the one I'm sorry, it's not this one. It's the college one. Why am I? Oh, the 9. Gosh, all of a sudden I'm drawing a blank on it. But the girl's walking with her books in her hands, and you can just see this woman behind her with this angry face pointing and I'm just like, oh my gosh. So yeah, there's a lot of great arguments on both sides, and I hate to rush through this because it's such a rich and interesting one to do, but we have so little time. And again, notice how my directions are staying through this. So look at the pictures, think about it. No, so I use the same little think guy. This one a different person did, so my little think guy is a little different there, but it's the same idea. What is the same and what is different? And all of these image analysis and directions and stuff, I'm going to show you where you can get all that stuff. All the goodies. So civil and civic discourse, here's some additional ideas. You can do a 4 corners debate. So that's the this or that, but you include, I'm not sure, but I'm leaning towards this, and I'm not sure, but I'm leaning towards that. And those people have to speak as well. So you move them into 4 corners, you give them the resources, they talk as a group, they come up with a spokesperson, they get 2 minutes to make their point, right? And each group goes, even the undecideds, they have to make 2 minutes to make their point why they're undecided. And then after everybody goes, I let the kids change so they can move, but they have to tell me before they move, they have to tell me what in the other group's argument, the group that they're moving to, what argument persuaded them to move. And that's also really great for persuasive writing because it helps teach them which arguments they handled more strongly. For example, if they just listed a bunch of stuff, a lot of times people don't really even remember why they want to change. But if that's my alarm telling me I got to get to the good stuff, it's all good stuff, but I got to make sure I give you the resources. It teaches them that if you elaborate on something a little more, you don't just give the details behind it, that those tend to be the ones that persuade people more. Red and green cards, silent voting is great, especially if you have them hold it up to their chest for your kids that are more shy. You know, would you re-up or not? Give them a red or a green card. Green is yes, I would. Red is no, I wouldn't. And then they can talk about it later, or they can all meet. A fun one to do with the red or green cards is you are holding up a green card, go find somebody that's got a red card and you try to convince each other, and then come back with, you know, who convinced whom and why, or if you're still undecided, that's okay too. Yeah, too many pro and con anchor charts. Again, that's another fun way to put a debate topic up there and that doesn't involve speaking, because some of your kids may be shy about accents or whatever. I had a kid who I didn't even notice an accent, and she hated speaking out loud because she was convinced everybody noticed her accent. I was like, baby, you don't have one. But me saying that, well, I mean, she had one, but she was perfectly understandable. But telling her that all day long isn't going to convince her. She believes it, so you find another way. And here are some more of these directions. Yeah, you guys can go, you're getting this PowerPoint at the end, so you can go through and look at this stuff. Here's a fun silent debate one if you let them write on the desk with expo markers. You put the topic in the middle of the desk. And again, I usually would do this more as a summative where they already have their arguments, right? They already know the topic inside and out. And then they go around, and I might have a couple of different topics, you know, who was more brave? 2 people, 2 different people, 2 different people, 2 different people. And then they go around and they write. And as I don't know if you can see this close enough, but you can see people are discussing, they like circled what someone else said and agreed, you know, or innocent until proven guilty. They're talking to each other through the dry erase markers. And just around here are some ideas that are the K5 standards you could use it for. But you can do it with any. This is obviously an older group. This is a high school topic. Taking the conversation to paper. So you've done a bunch of discussion and you've looked at resources, you've done all of this, and now it's time to write. I highly recommend giving them some sentence frames, at least to start. And these are some great ways for them to look at how they can start thinking about what they're going to write. I love digital storyboards, especially for that, bringing in that illustrating. The make-believe comics, yes, it's actually spelled that way. It drives me crazy. It buys the grammarian in me crazy. It is spelled that way. They do try to encourage you to sign up and buy and whatnot. You do have to create an account, but they don't send you any junk. But there are actually, I don't even think you need to create an account, because my kiddos go into this all the time and they don't have to. I don't let them make their own accounts for stuff. So you do get some free ones. I think you can get up to 6 panels for free. You get 18 if you pay for it. But it's got all of the characters and they just drag them in. It's got the speech bubbles and they type in what they want it to say. And it's got settings and all that stuff. You're limited on the number that you can do and the number of panels, but you're not going to have them do this every single day anyway. And the same thing with storyboard. This one is just the same thing, but it's a little bit more kind of realistic images. But again, they're going to try to sell you the bigger version, but you can absolutely use the small version for free. I won't give you anything you got to buy. I was a teacher. I don't buy stuff for my classroom. I bought enough already. I'm not buying anymore. And then this is a little organizer for doing it hard copy. Or for planning it out. I do some stuff with Scratch, which is a digital programming thing. And this is how I have them like lay out their storyboard before they create it in Scratch. And again, I'll show you where you can get to that. Source sets are amazing. Since we had Jimmy Carter in here, I've kind of threw together a Jimmy Carter source set. Some of them there's not enough stuff for, but a lot of the bigger topics there is. This is obviously an image. This is a video going through his boyhood home. More images. This is a sculpture. This is a video of a day at the boyhood home. And then this is a list of grade level appropriate, standard appropriate books. And I think I'm going to show you where to get that. This is basically from the Georgia Council for Social Studies, has a children's literature listing. All right, Inspire. Is my link live? Will it work? So the standards.org, I'm sure you all go to georgiastandards.org, right? All of that is moving. Well, okay, parts of that are moving. To this thing called Inspire. If you just go to any search engine, Google, Edge, whatever, and you type in Georgia Inspire, the first hit will probably be this. But if you just want to go to inspire.GaDOE.org, go to the middle tab. You do not need to sign in. You can sign in if you're in Georgia through your statewide longitudinal data system, if your district has set it up. But you can get to the only thing you can't do is save things to your own courses, but you can get to everything without signing in. So I'm going to go to Social Studies. I'm on the middle tab, by the way, y'all. All of the standards are on this tab, as well as the WIDA language associations. And if we have time, I'm going to show you that. But if not, go in here and play around and you can see what's in there. So I go to Social Studies. Here are all of the grade levels. And if I go in, let's say to 5th grade, all of the units, the suggested units. And then if I go under each unit, all of our sample lessons are here. So we've got a STEM STEAM lesson, At the end, there's usually a culminating performance task. And if you bring up, let's bring up amending the Constitution, and you open it up, here's the sample lesson, and all of the things that you need to teach this lesson are here. So display Article 5 of the Constitution and read it to the class. If we click on this, it brings up Article 5. And again, it's a primary source, it's in cursive. I want the kids to see it, but they're not gonna be able to read it. And even if I gave them this, I would totally be giving them, this thing would get chunked and it would get all kinds of supports put in it. But there it is. View and discuss amending Constitution PowerPoint. Again, here's the PowerPoint. It downloads it over here, and then I click on it to open it. Oop, it opened it up on my other screen. Let's drag it up here. And here's the PowerPoint. So all these goodies are in here. All the lesson resources, they're embedded in the lesson itself, but if you want to be able to print them or share them, if you guys use Google Classroom, you can share them through Add to Google Classroom. Now, this is still being presented, so not all of the other subject areas have all their stuff up, but social studies does. So you can pretty much come up here and start using this. Oh, this is beta. Don't look at that. That's not ready yet, but we're creating all kinds of cool activities that are coming. And then there's some unit resources like the refresher checklist. There's the teacher content videos. If I click on this, it's going to have all of the videos that teach the content for that to the teacher. So if you just got moved to 5th grade and all of a sudden you're having
this Georgia Department of Education.
Ooh, that's really loud. All of a sudden you're having to teach 5th grade. You can brush up on the standards yourself. And then I need to get to the bubble. So I'm going to use this to go back home. We have all of these supports that I've been showing you. You got all of the grade levels, right? And then there's this one that says social studies supports, EL, SPED, enrichment, statewide organizations. And it's broken into those, right? All students and English learner support. So when I open this up, they say they're lessons, but they're not actually lessons. So here are my image source analysis organizers. I open that, and basically it's a big table of contents where you can see what the resource looks like. It's got a description here. So that See, Think, Wonder, here it is. You just click on the link. Now, if you're in Edge, it's going to open it up because Edge is a Microsoft product and so is Word. But if you're in Google, it's going to download it here. Oh, go away. And so here it is. You can even edit it. We made most of them Word documents. So if like you want to change the language or whatever, you can do that. And you can print it. You can display it on your board, whatever. Let's see. So here are all the goodies. This is one like you can put the image in here. Take a quick look at that one. I can actually paste the image in this. And then there's ones where I can paste the image in, and then there's text boxes for the kids to write in down below. They can do that as a group. Lots of goodies there. Here's the concept maps I was telling you about. Now, these are probably for older kids, although I've got Freyer models and Venn diagrams and stuff. But like my concept maps always have a section for, and I've got the little icons. Everything has little icons. Here's the main idea. They can write about it, or they can draw or paste a picture. And then here's the concepts that go with it. And all of them have a spot where they can draw or paste. So if you have a kid that maybe can write a word or two, but they really want to explain their idea through an image, they can do that. These are super cool. We've got writing supports, vocabulary acquisition supports. There's some word wall, illustrated word wall strips in here. There's some general ones. Time is running out. I'm running out of time. It won't open. Do it. So these are illustrated word wall strips that you can put on your wall, and you can make your own. It's more just a sample and idea. And you can go through and look at that. And then we've got some STEAM ones, and then statewide organizations. Here's a really great one. A lot of organizations that aren't Georgia Department of Education have great resources. So for example, the Jimmy Carter National Historic Park. If you come in here, it's got links to the virtual tours. This is still very much under construction. So some of the stuff is really empty. I promise you I'm getting to it, but I'm only one human being and it takes a lot of time. The Federal Reserve has a bunch of lessons, and they also have graphic organizers. And then if it's just a group that I don't really have a bunch of separate things to send you to, I just want to send you to them, like the Virtual Museum of Law, you know, how's the law written and stuff. These are literally just the websites and the links. Atlanta History Center, Georgia Trail of Tears, KSU Museum of Holocaust Education. Cool, huh? I think this is really cool. All right, let me get back to my PowerPoint because we're almost done. Resources. Here's this. I would really love for you to take some time to look at this. It's in that EL bubble, but it's also, if I didn't put it in the folder, the goodie folder at the end, let me know and I'll be happy to add it to it. But these are just some great strategies to make lessons accessible to all children. So ideas about closing gaps in background knowledge, and I called it gaps because I can't explain the whole thing on a paper. Accessibility swirl, engaging the senses, some ideas for different ways to bring in the senses, scaffolding, and of course, looking at accessibility and assessment. Is your input comprehensible? We have communities, we have grade level communities on Facebook, and we have them in actual community. Here are the QR codes. You can do a real quick screen grab, but again, I'm going to give you the PowerPoint. Here's how you can contact me. And if you can, I would love for you to grab that QR code and let me know what you thought of the session. It is going to open up a form, but if you want to grab it real quick, it's a real quick survey just to let me know what you thought of the session. I'll give you half a second to grab that guy. And then I've just got one more link. Oh, and I have 4 more minutes left.
And Nancy, someone asked if economics personal finance course is on that.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was that?
Someone asked if the economics and personal finance course will be added to the Georgia Inspire site at some point.
Yes, that one, I need to check with Joy where we stand on that one. That would be a good question to direct to Joy. If you go to the social studies, the DOE social studies page, Joy's email is in there. I think it's just jhatcher@doe.k12.ga.us. Those standards, that whole thing kind of got reworked. And so I know it's really close, but I don't want to misquote. Yes, you can access the resources from Alabama. You just can't sign in. So like you can't save things to my courses, but everything is completely accessible for anyone. You just go to inspire.GaDOE.org, right, .org, and it's all there. And then, great. And then the last one is the goodie folder. And that's where, let me get my mouse off of it. And that's where the PDF of this presentation is. The accessibility sheet should be up there. And some of the hard copies of the concept maps are up there. If there's something that isn't up there that you want, it's in that bubble. But if you can't find it there, just email me and I'll be happy to send it to you. And that is all I've got for you. Do y'all have any questions? That I don't know. I don't have your emails. So yeah, I would go with the QR code, or you can email me individually if you want and I can send it. Grab that real quick and I will send it to you.
Awesome. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for your presentation.
Absolutely. I know it went by at the speed of light, right?
Well, you know, how do you cram so much into 1 hour? So I get it. I just want to mention to everybody that the Georgia TESOL conference is coming up in the fall, and we're still looking for some more presentations from K-12 teachers. So if you are interested in presenting something, our first vice president, David Chiesa, has put an excellent guide up on the website to help walk you through putting together a presentation. I just put the link in the chat, georgiatesol.org/conference, and you will find everything you need there. If you have any further questions, you can email any of us, or I think there's a, you can email us at info@georgiatesol.org and we can get back to you there, or if you want to email me directly, it's Karen@georgiatesol.org. But that is it for tonight. I do want to acknowledge Donna, who's one of our other board members. And I also want to acknowledge Jenna, who is also from the DOE. She's the math person, and she'll be co-presenting with me in a couple of weeks. And so thank you all so much for coming, and you'll get an email from us with the link to this video as well.
Thank you all so much. It was a pleasure being with you tonight.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.